All right, cool. Let's try to even up the light a little bit.
Hey,
But yeah, yeah. And then where are you based again?
Atlanta, Atlanta.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't
Thanks a
been.
lot, Georgia. No, I'm just kidding. I know you did. I know you did your part, so I appreciate it.
Oh, well, yeah, I definitely did. I mean, I had to. I mean, yeah. Anyways, um, so because we are on episode 11, going on episode 12, there are a ton of questions that I want to ask, but I'm not going to ask all of the questions because it's just too many. So you're going to find that my questions are like sporadic and all over the place.
Okay.
But then they round off getting into episode 11, and then we talk about episode 11. And then we have some people that have asked their own questions for you, so I'm going to make sure that I ask that at the end. But
Mm-hmm.
we'll start this off by saying, how are you? How's life? And is there someone special in your life right
How am I? I would say I'm doing pretty good. Life's pretty good. You know, I just got this new apartment, and I think I was on the road a lot. Even outside the season, I was just because the house I was living in beforehand, he had moved, and so I was like, you know what? Let me take advantage of this time of not having like a place locked down, and I was just traveling a lot for like some content stuff and family stuff, um, and then realized I was on the move too much, and that destabilized a little bit of me, like mentally. So I think getting a new place where I can finally unpack my stuff after being in a suitcase for like 6 months and was has been really good, even though everything's still in disarray because I just emptied everything out. I've been organizing it the last day and a half or whatever. So I've been feeling really good, excited about this. Uh, I really do enjoy watching the show, so that's been pretty cool. So I'd say in general, feeling pretty good. We got Christmas coming up, big Christmas fan. And then anyone special? I mean, I don't know. I feel like I've been taking a lot of like solo time. Because I was on the road so much, and then um, special has just been like my family. We we lost my grandfather last month, and it was cancer. It was a long time coming. He was 87, so it was a long life. But we were doing hospice care, so I was with him, and often over this time, and my uncle and aunt, who you realize how much you don't see people when you see them all the time, and then my dad was flying down a lot, and my sisters were in town, so it was just like been having a lot of family time, been just more intentional with my mom, and so my parents are out here, and so that's that. I feel like we've always been close, but I think that it's just been more, like I said, as I've just been grounding them. I realize how grateful I am for the closeness of my family, and there's been more focus on that. So and that's been nice.
Yeah, you definitely have to focus on family if they're present in your life. Sorry for your loss. I recently lost my mom in July. So I definitely
Oh dear, I'm
understand.
sorry.
Yeah, hey, it just, life is lifing out here.
It is.
And with that being said, are you worried for America?
um, I feel like uh, in the short term, in like terms of difficulties people might face, I'd say in so many ways, yes. But then I feel like overall, I'm a pretty optimistic person in general, and I think that you know, I mean, I know you. I feel like in the episode, you're like you don't want to get too much into the election, but I remember 2016. There was a concern around after they announced Trump had won. I was like, all right, well, this is we'll see what happens. Literally the day that it was announced, I was driving. I was in my car. Pretty decent car. I was in a decent neighborhood, and I was coming from work and corporate jobs I was working. I was like wearing a suit, and I was at a stoplight, and this guy was walking across the street in the crosswalk, and he stops in front of my car, and he turns and he looks at me, and he's like, flips me off. He's like, "Fuck you, Trump won." And I was like, "Wait, how do I don't even know you. How do you even know like nothing about this situation?" I was like, "This is concerning because this just happened." And like, and so the fears around like it emboldening someone with that sort of racist attitude was like realized in that second, in that day. But the other thing that happened as right as he yelled that, like I was kind of in shock. I was kind of thrown off by all the factors of it. And then the two guys in the cars next to me, these two white guys, they like pop off, they hop out, they're yelling at them, they're engaging. So I think that there's always, a reaction for every action. And so it was kind of like, okay, yes, it emboldens this person, then it also emboldened the people who are like, you know what, I need to stand up for other people who may be dealing with a difficult time. And I feel like, in that moment, I saw not only did they stand up, also I was like, hey, there's two of them, there's one of him. So despite maybe the voting results or the turnout, it's like there are people who are feeling emboldened to like fight against some of the negative the narrative and consequences of this election. So I'd like to think that that attitude will continue, and that the people who uh, do want to push for standing up for people that may be dealing with certain things are going to continue to do so. And so, uh, yeah, I'm optimistic in the long term that you know, and also I feel like it's never a bad thing to learn more about yourself as an individual. I think very similarly, it's not a bad thing for us to learn about ourselves, as a country. And so, uh, in so many ways, it's going to be reflected. It's the result is reflective of things that are going on. And so, long term, I think uh, even if it's a rough patch, learning more about ourselves can only yield good results
I think
eventually.
that's a beautiful answer.
Sorry, it's so
I,
wordy. That's just
no, no,
me.
no, you're
So I
good. You're
appreciate it.
good. No, but it's interesting hearing like everybody's, positive response to, not that I want people to be negative and,
Of
cursing and
course.
all of that, but it's just interesting to hear how people are able to make it a more positive situation than it being negative. What made you do season 40? And can you explain to us how that call went? Because I know everyone has a different story about how they get the call, or if they already knew that they were going to be on the season. What does that look like?
Well, I didn't even call till like a couple months before, which is like, you kind of hear things here and there about like people getting called, and you're like, I just did 39. That was my first season on MTV. So I was like, hopeful. I want to get called because I love this game. And you even know how big 40 was going to be or like the theme or anything, but you have to, you imagine it's like, all right, season 40 will probably be something different, something significant. And so maybe a couple months before, which was like months after so many people that I heard from, I did get the call, and I was like pretty excited. I was like, yeah, of course, like I want to do this. I am, so passionate about this game, and even though I'm new, I just really dive into things that I'm excited about. And so yeah, I just uh, and they just called me like, yeah, dude. And I was like, of course, I'm excited for the opportunity, and luckily I got to go. And it was, and then once I'm there and realized what they were doing, that's when it really dawned on me how incredible it was to be a part of a season that has all of the icons there. Because all I did was USA One, and then with no MTV people, and then 39 was all new people pretty much. The few people who did do MTV and not the international shows. So I remember literally I called Horacio and Noree like a couple days before we left, and I was like, "Hey, like you guys have played with the OGs, like in Ride or Dies, like I can keep up with them, right? Like I'm on the level with I had a little bit of doubt because like these people can be larger than life when you're watching them on the seasons, and they're legendary records, and then they're like, no, like you'll be okay, like you'll be good. And I was like, all right. And then so I'm training hard, and then you get there and you hope, and then you start performing, and then we get up to uh, the season, and you start to see how you stack up, and it's yeah, it was was a pretty surreal experience. Like I said, I'm just excited to be there, but then I'm like, oh shoot, like you know, I do start to feel like I'm like, okay, they called me for a reason, and maybe I put in the work to earn my spot here.
Yes, yes, come through, come through. Do people on reality TV make money? Because I had saw this tweet where Wes was championing the fact that he was going on another reality show and that he was getting paid to do so. So, what does that look like? Because I know when I auditioned for Big Brother, I read something saying, well, you basically have to, be able to do the show for X amount of time, and you're not getting paid, and you have to walk away from your regular life and job to be on the show. So, what does that look like for the challenge?
Um, yeah. So I'm trying to think. I'm sorry. I'm we edit. I'm double checking my head. I'm like, okay, like what can I say and not say about it because I'm in contract wise. But uh, essentially, and I'm trying to make sure I don't overstep any contract areas.
No,
But
I got you.
yes, you get paid. They have everyone has their own contract. Um, I think my understanding is that there is like kind of tiered systems based on like amount of seasons and stuff. But they do give some sort of compensation that's related to how long you last on the season. I think different people have different contracts as far as like minimums and non guarantees and all those things. But yes, there is. It's not like the thing about it though is that it's not like it's crazy because you it's weird. I've seen people on like Twitter sometimes that are like, "Oh, you're on TV, like you wouldn't know problems about like I'm like, "Whoa, like we're not like millionaires. Like if you don't win the show, like you're not getting anything crazy. You're getting some amount of money that, uh, but it is you also can't really maintain like a full time job, and you know a lot of full time jobs won't let you randomly take off 3 or 4 months.
Right,
So uh, that is yeah, you might make money while you're there, but then you're also like, I know so many people that are making more money that take a pay cut basically from their regular salary in order to go and participate on the challenge. And so that is, but with the potential, there's the upside of like if you win, you are going to make more money,
right,
and
right,
then it varies by person. Like some people, I'm sure, like I said, based on their tenure in the show,
right.
have different rates that make it lucrative.
So I told you earlier before we started recording that I'm gonna be a bit all over the place with my questions.
That's fine. Yeah,
Uh,
I'm
but
all over the place all the time. So
but my first question is about Norese because I love Norese. I think she's amazing. Watching her journey in 39 was phenomenal, and I just love her. I think she's great, great for TV, great competitor, all of those good things. But she was the first to go. What didn't we see, and what should we know about how that all went down?
um, I mean, I think that the more I talk to like especially the OGs, they talk about how skill is such a huge factor in the game, like having a skill set, a well-rounded skill set for the game. But then, like equally, or at least close to equally large factor can be format. Like format can heavily impact the game, and not just format of the season because every season has usually ends up having multiple formats, like or the format shifts at some point, and unfortunately, the luck of the draw was that they had this first challenge that did not match Norese's skill set. Those boats were very tricky to operate, and all of us found various challenges with that. And so it was, just luck of the draw that was the first challenge that we had, the invitational, and didn't match her skill set, so she lost. And then it just so happened that there's it's all the luck factors because it's like, okay, this one didn't match your skill set or whatever, and then you have the format and the fact that I'm like, okay, so now her only options to compete against are you know Casey, Jenny, and Olivia, and then when they didn't show when we got to the arena. We see the setups for the different. We're like, oh shoot, they're gonna do. We're like, okay, we see the hall brawl setup. We see the arena for balls in, and then we also see the other game for find shelter or whatever. And we're like, what's exactly happening? Like, okay, I guess they're doing all these eliminations. And they did a draw. So they had, but seniority drew first. So Era 1 drew randomly from 4 placards, which they drew one, and that was the elimination that they had. And then Era 3 went up and drew one. So Era 1 goes up, and we're like, all right, cool. They took pole wrestle. Okay, we're there may be a shot here for Noree to get this. Like we are. Here's what you didn't see. It's funny. Me and Horacio are like, Noree needs to get the basically finding shelter and nothing else,
Yeah,
because we're like
yeah.
the size difference. Like as feisty as she is, there is a size difference that will matter almost certainly. And you never know, because we had Mark and Derek do the pole wrestle, and there's a huge size difference there. But Derek was able to pull that win, so we know that like upsets can happen. But we're like, all right, worst case scenario is probably going to be taking shelter. Second case, maybe balls in, has a little bit more flexibility for size, where size may not play a role. Then I guess pole wrestle, then hall brawl, because the crappy thing about hall brawl, why like I'm not really a fan of it in the game. Like I wouldn't mind it because I'm bigger than a decent amount of people. Like I'm in the bigger percentage of a larger percentage of people in the show. But I don't enjoy it as a fan because Hall Brawl is one of the only eliminations that has never had an upset. There's never been a scenario where math and physics didn't win out. So like I remember they were asking me about like, what do you think is gonna happen with the Theo and Polly? I was like, I think physics is gonna happen. What do you mean? Like there's not really like I think that's what always happens. And so it was just funny because like, Era 1 draws pole wrestle, Era 2 draws the taking shelter one. We're like, okay, maybe there's hope for balls in or whatever. And then the funniest part is, this is what I was going to say, is Noree is like, all right, if we have because we didn't know they were going to draw. So she was telling us for it. She's like, okay, if you guys get to choose, make sure we pick, she's like, I want to pick pole wrestle. We're like, what? Like, what? Like, we love you, but no, that's not your best option, Noree. Like, there is a
She's a scrapper though. Like she's
is.
a scrapper. And like when you think about what she went through in 39, like no one thought that she was gonna beat you two guys in that, in that course. So I can understand her in that moment maybe wanting to be like, hey, let's try it out. But I love Noree. She's definitely a scrapper. Let's talk about Horacio. We're gonna fast forward. Had that upset loss to Derek. Now it was on social media, and Noree made a thing about it, and they went back and forth. And Derek had his comments. What are your comments? You were there. How do you feel about it?
I mean, the deal is that people. It was never a matter of is the game rigged or anything like that. The game is very much not rigged. Production, you can tell, consistently is doing their best to call things as fairly as possible. The reality of the situation is that at some point, Horacio's ball got stuck in the thing. It threw off so many different factors of what happened in a game where it really came down to seconds, that I felt like I'm like, you know what? This allowed too many variables to have a fair outcome. Did MTV, did the production try their best to call it fairly in that moment? I do believe that they were trying. And Derek did finish his thing first. So like they decided based on a variety of factors and their interpretation of everything, they're like, yeah, he won. I think they tried their best. I just feel like because of all of the butterfly effect of like this changed this part of the game, and this is a game that literally came down to seconds. It like threw off the ability to know what would have happened if that error in the mechanics of the game didn't work out. And because even though Derek is so fast, like Horacio is just on paper faster, and so it like would have been interesting to see had it not been for the faulty equipment. what would have happened. And at the end of the day, the equipment, like, they're building never done before things. Even though I think Survivors had a similar game, the one that they built here was different and on a different scale, using a different staff in a different country, and like all these factors. And so, like I said, I think they are trying their best. And that one, I just was like, oh man, I wish we could have seen what happened if everything had played out smoothly. Like I said, I don't think they weren't trying to be fair. I think it was I would have liked to have seen it happen without the faulty
Right.
equipment error.
Horacio is another scrapper. Shout out to Horacio. He's awesome.
I will say another thing about Horacio that, like, I really, especially as we've gotten to the individual part of the game, is that, like, people don't even realize how skilled. Like, people are like, "Oh, Horacio is so cool, so fast, all these strong, all these things." Like, he is faster than probably anyone that's ever been on the challenge as far as like endurance runs. And everything, his hands move fast, like, and he's smart. I think that is what people haven't gotten to see, is that, like, he's good at math, he's good at puzzles, he's good at all these things. And like in the higher end of performers on everything. And so it would have been, I hope that he does come back someday. I'm always talking to him, but I want to respect like whatever he wants. But I would say I'm optimistic that we, eventually, we could see him again on a challenge, and it would be
I
really
am a
cool.
fan of like all of the solo challenges. Like I'm so tired of the teams and the groups and the partnerships and I just want some solo joints. We're gonna fast forward again. The argument with Cara and Laurel. You got some heat on social media because you're like Team Laurel, and the edit that we saw. I mean, any human being would not be Team Laurel based on the edit that we saw. Why in the entire world were you in this moment a Trump supporter? I don't understand it. What's going on? I
Oh my
need you to get
gosh.
me to understand here.
Well, I mean, talk about Trump supporters, but different conversation. But um, but no, I mean, that's the annoying part of the editing, is that, like, the clip that they have of me is me referencing a different conversation than the one that's actually seen in the show. Because in that day, Cara and Laurel get into probably, like, I want to say like 7, 8 different fights that they have. I comment on one that I'm there for, where Cara does approach Laurel, like me and Laurel are talking, and I'm just kind of watching. And so I comment on this one. They play the clip of what I'm commenting on for a different argument. That being said, like, I'm not Team Laurel or Team Cara. Like, I know both of them. I like both of them. I have known Laurel longer in this moment, and I think for me, it's just not in me to abandon anyone who I feel like is alone, or anyone who's lashing out at any moment, because it's like, uh, if I was in All Stars 4 and I see 2 people who are working with Cara and no one else is talking to her, because apparently that's what happened. They were saying that there was kind of an active movement by Laurel and like the whole house alliance that she had, to not work or engage with Cara. I'm like, I would be talking to Cara in that situation. Anytime I see someone that's kind of casted out as someone who has been different and misunderstood so often, I'm going to reach out to them. And also for me, I'm very much about, like, what is it that we want? If we want change behavior, people who need the most love are typically the ones who ask for it in the least loving ways. And I'm looking to, support everyone. And that's what they don't show. It's like me and Cara sitting in bed. She took Polly's bed. So we're going to bed every night, like literally facing each other. So we talk all the time. We had conversations that day. I'm checking on Cara. I'm checking on Laurel. For me, it's not a Team Cara, Team Laurel situation. It just is more like, hey, I want to make sure that all these people are okay, because at the end of the day, they're human beings, and everyone's dealing with this weird situation that we're in of being adversaries and complicated things. So it's like, it is, I wish, I want to cultivate peace. That's just kind of natural to me, which I know isn't a favorite thing to do on the challenge, but that's, I can't not be me.
But just for clarity, so what we saw between Cara and Laurel and what seemed to be like some underground pantry or whatever, wherever this section of the
For
castle
real, we
was.
were in this underground kitchen pantry.
Yeah, it looked weird. It was intense, and there were a lot of low blows thrown at each other. So you're saying like that particular moment was argument number 6th or 7th, or
Probably. I think I know. I think the one we saw was the last one. So it was either 7 or 8. I think I want to say it was 7 or 8 that day that I remember hearing because you could hear them yelling at different points in the house.
were you present there when that was happening? That what we saw on TV, or were you
No,
somewhere
I was present for the one before that. Yeah, well, one of the ones before that. That was also in the kitchen.
Got you.
Or
Interesting.
that area. It was like kitchen, gym, game area, whatever. But yeah, it's just I don't know. At the end of the day, I'm like, these are two grown people that clearly are not friends, and I'm just like not. I'm not
Do you
really
ever
involved.
do you ever get the feeling that a lot of these veteran people are so used to being on TV that they know that they perhaps need to create a moment or moments for the camera, or is this is like real life for them? Because the reason why I say this
Yeah,
is because we see in one clip Laurel and Cara are playing badminton outside. Then we see in another clip Laurel and Cara are arguing with each other and ripping each other's heads off. From my perspective and vantage point, it makes it seem like either they're just doing this for camera time or I don't know, it's confusing. Because how would you
I think that if you were to run some cameras at my house growing up with all four of my siblings, you would probably find clips of us arguing and clips of us playing out in the street together. Like I think that that's most households, and I feel like here's the deal: I'm not pushing the sibling sentiment because they're not siblings, they're not friends. But we're in this environment, we're in this house, and like they have such a long history that I'm sure that like there is, an for some civility, and sometimes you're just like, hey, like let's hang out and talk, and who knows what stage the clip of them playing games together and hanging out is too in the show. That could be
right, right,
they before they're taking distance. As far as like
right,
arguments for TV or whatever, I feel like what I always tell people is I was like, these people aren't dramatic because they're on TV, they're on TV because they're dramatic. Like I'm around them when there's no cameras, when we're not filming, and this is how they act. They act out pretty consistently. A lot of I would put myself in the lower end of the dramatic personality, but that being said, it's like very few, if any, moments are for TV. Like I feel like that's so strongly in these shows because it's like specifically in the challenge because and that's what's annoying is especially era one. Like era one was like, oh yeah, era four wants to, the OGs was like, oh yeah, these new kids, they're just looking for like their TV moment. It's like, no, like literally we're like and uh it's like they follow that narrative sometimes. They follow the narrative of I think finding, just like we see in the country, it's like everyone wants to hate the younger generation or whatever. And that's I feel like what you see a lot of the times is just some hazing, some bullying, some negative thoughts about, which I find myself looking at younger people all the time and judging them. So I feel like it's what people fall into. But at the end of the day, we are we are being filmed for the show, but we are also just we're real people with real feelings in a fake environment, and in a fake environment where we are literally incentivized to be in conflict with each other because of the makeup of the game. Like we're in high adrenaline situations. We are, putting our bodies, minds on the line, all these things, and then we are actually against each other because we're opponents at the end of the day, and all of that I think mixes to tension that we see boil over and explode in multiple ways. And like I said, these are you don't end up on the show and be a normal person. Like something's off in general, just to be
So
there.
we see you in season 39 demolish some vets demolish some legends. What were they called? I think they were called mercenaries, whatever they were called. You
The champions.
demolish them. So then you're building up your resume. You're building up your resume. Then we get to season 40, where we see Darrell and some of the guys are talking about Darrell not wanting to go in elimination with Kyland because Kyland is going to send him home again. And I'm saying the same damn thing as I'm watching this on my TV screens. I'm like, Darrell, you better not go up against Kyland because he will send you home again. Then we see him in the deliberation, boasting, talking about, hey, if I go in, I'm not going to lose, all this. Hey, then you send him home again. What is going on in your mind at this particular moment? Do you feel like you that dude? Do you feel bad for Darrell? Do you like Darrell? Talk to us about the Darrell situation.
I would say I like Darrell. I feel like Darrell, has been one of the vets that for sure has been welcoming. Like to me, even I feel like after we did our elimination in 39, he was giving me a little bit of love and like respect. As a competitor and as a newbie, that means a lot because Darrell is one of the OG like legends. four wins in a row. Like is such a noteworthy like he's one of the Titans, and so I feel like it does feel really cool to get a win, but it's also like, and I think so many things can happen in eliminations, and I always am trying to put forward my best. Like you said, he's talking beforehand about how he's like planning to win because he's a competitor. That like, why would you show up here and not expect to win? It's kind of my mindset, and I think a mindset of a lot of the competitors. And so I feel like, yeah, I mean, I got nothing but respect for Darrell. I mean, he is such a beast, and when one of the OG like Black players and champions of the challenge, which representation matters and it's important, and so I think that, and he's actually Black and Latino as well. So yeah, I feel I don't know. I mean, I'm just coming in to try my best. I think that the only thing that sucks is that we didn't get something physical, and you don't, when it's people that you like, it sucks to potentially do a physical elimination. Someone who hasn't really had a hands-on headbanger elimination, but as a fan of the show, everyone's always talking about that, and I'm like, trust me, I am, 6'1", 225 coming into the show. Like, I'm not really concerned about doing a physical elimination, guys. I just haven't gotten one. So, and I know he wanted to do one as well because that's like something he likes, and so that was, I feel like, the only downside is that we haven't gotten to do that. But he almost had me on that one. I messed up at the door. I had a misunderstanding with how to work the operating of the door at the beginning, which they don't really show. So I fell behind, and as we saw, this is a math elimination, and Darrell is good at math. He's a business owner, and he's a pretty smart guy. Just in that, that's what's funny is people are always judging like, oh, they couldn't figure out this equation or whatever. I was like, I promise you, in your life, you've never done math in these circumstances. And if you haven't done math in these circumstances, as someone who does do well at math in these circumstances, I can tell you most people would not. And it is more difficult.
But you have to admit, though, it'll be like an equation that we'll see on our screen, like 3 times 5 equals what? And they're like sitting there, which seems like for hours. And I'm like, are you freaking serious? Like, we know what that is. Like, come on, what's going on? And I can imagine it's the editing and how they piece it together. But I'm always yelling at my screens, like, are you freaking serious? But so like you mentioned that representation is important. And I often talk about representation on many of these reality shows. Why don't we, and I've spoken to you about this, and I've mentioned this on social media out loud, like yelling to the rooftops, and all of my reviews, and including the one last night, we do not see Kyland talking to any men in the show during the whole season. Only once Horacio left, is like Kyland doesn't know anybody else that's on the show. For whatever reason, we keep seeing Corey talk to Nehemiah. Corey has talked to Nehemiah in length every episode, only for Nehemiah to end up getting the boot during the purge. Who are you not like cool with the other guys? Is Horacio your only friend? Like,
Okay, so yes, here's the deal. I'm asking the same question as you as I'm watching the show because and even when I wrote it down because I was like, when where did it go? Because Corey, when Nehemiah left, he's like, yeah, I didn't have any top guy friends
right, and that
after Nehemiah left.
right,
And no, here's the deal. Right after Horacio left, Corey was the first person, and actually the only person who really like saw. He's like, Kylan's only guy friend in this house just left. Let's talk. Let's lock in. Let's we are kinfolk. So I'm just like, let's talk. And that's obviously been important to me in all of my life, not just the challenge. So I feel like this is really my first time really engaging with Corey was in this show. I think I like met him maybe at an event or somewhere briefly, but yeah, I mean it was like a we started talking back then, and he's like, "Hey, I'm really close to Nehemiah as well," and I was like, "I think Nehemiah is really cool." He has also not approached me for a conversation, despite I've approached him a couple of times. But like, there's a lot of people here. We're also getting to know each other, whatever. So me and Corey have that conversation. The very next day or 2 days later was the challenge where me and Olivia were the head of the chamber, and it was Nehemiah and Emily or Devin and Tori versus CT and Tina. And that's the first time me and Nehemiah talk, and I'm like, I don't love that the first time he's talking to me is when he needs me, but I like Corey. I like Nehemiah as a person. Obviously, Nehemiah is Nia's number one. I want to get. I would love to work with him. So we have a conversation before the chamber where he's like, "Hey, Devin approached me for this deal." Then we go into the chamber, and here's the deal: I am back against the wall. My whole era is like, we gotta save Devin and Tori, and I'm like, you know what? Like, I don't like being bullied. So I was feeling like Tony. I was like, you know what? I don't appreciate this. And I like Nehemiah. So let's see how this goes. And then we do the chamber. And I'm like I said, I'm pushing against everyone in my group. I'm like, nah, like, I want to make my own decision. And then it comes out in the chamber that Nehemiah was lying in our first conversation and that he approached Devin for the deal. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I'm trying to, like, why did you make this so hard for me to make a case for you? And so then we it just made too much sense to not go that way. And I was like, hey, but this doesn't mean I don't want to work with you. It just means in this situation, this is how this plays out. And I do think Corey may have held on to that a little bit because he's like, hey, like, we have this conversation about us working together, and I explained the situation just like I did to you. Nehemiah is like confirming that it's accurate, like that is how it went down. And Corey kept a little bit of distance of that. We did keep talking, and and that's actually, let me, when I say a little bit distant, I mean a little bit, because overall we still kept talking pretty consistently. We were still coordinating on the game. We're still cheering for each other. And then even in the gladiator challenge when we have the shields, like me and Corey and Nehemiah like don't touch each other because like they don't show that, and we like talk about it during the field. I was like, hey, recognize like I'm not coming after you guys, and you guys aren't coming after me because there's so many people out here. At the end of the day, like, you are people who I want to keep building with. And after that, I'd say after that challenge, that was the first opportunity where we had actions being able to, because everyone can say whatever, but we had the actual actions to back it up. That like, hey, we do want to build a relationship. And I do think we started to get closer then, but that was just, what, 3 challenges before this one, where Nehemiah left. So I am talking to Corey a lot. I do feel like we have a relationship going. Oh, me and like, that's how I'm obviously with Corey against the Josh situation.
yeah,
So
because I was like, both of y'all had a run in with Josh, so like we don't see no conversation whatsoever, and I'm
me
so
and Josh are having conversations. Me and Jordan are having lots of conversations. But I think at the end of the day, a real reason why you don't see me talking to the guys is I don't know if you really see guys talking to guys when they're not fighting, other than maybe Josh and Johnny have a lot of conversations. But I actually don't know how much they're showing that. I do feel like the end of the format of the game is that the women decide things for the men, and it was kind of leaning that way early on. And you know, CTE in the previous season, I remember has a line where he says like, you know, the women have always controlled the game, like, and in a way, and in our game, they actually are. So I feel like
Yeah.
the women with the targeting situation of the women choosing men, men choosing women, there's not that much reason for us to have a lot of conversations. I'm like, of the guys, the only guy I'm really rocking with by that point is Corey and Jordan, to an extent. And for me though, it's a but yeah, any opportunity, I'm supporting, you know, Corey, someone who hasn't won, over Jordan, someone who has, as far as at the stage of the game where we're at. Because the mindset I came into this season with is I was like, yes, I want to compete against the best, but I will not help them get there. They have to get themselves to the end, just like I have to get myself to the end. And so that's why, you know, I was ready to prioritize like a Corey and Theo, and me and Theo are talking a lot. And so, yeah, it is. That's more on the show than on me, as far as I didn't talking to guys. But the conversations with the girls are the ones that matter because
Yeah.
they impact the
Yeah.
guys' game.
It was an interesting, like for me as you know, a watcher, just interesting to see your connection with Horacio. And then once Horacio leaves, like we don't really see you unless you're winning something, and then you're talking to like Michelle and Olivia or whatever. So I just thought it was very interesting. But they continuously show us Corey and Nehemiah for whatever reason. And I'm just mad that that didn't amount to shit. I mean, because Nehemiah just left. So I'm like, every episode they're building us up with this Corey and Nehemiah duo of power, and neither of them have yet to get into power. We're on episode 11. Anyways, moving
Yeah,
on.
I'm the one getting in power in that relationship, and I'm supporting them. And yeah, and I'm not even involved. So it is what it is. You
Who
know,
are your
they
top
decided
four
that
people in the house right now?
at this stage of the game where we're at in the
Yes.
episode last night, I'd say, I mean, it's literally Michelle, Olivia, and Tori, I guess. Like, because there's no point in me having a guy that I'm rocking that's like my top numbers, or that's three people. So I guess fourth would probably be Corey. Um, even though I'm nowhere on his list, that's fine. No. But I know like enemy of my enemy started yelling. I know he's against Josh. I know he doesn't want Jordan there. I know he doesn't want, like, he doesn't want all of the people who have won before. He doesn't want Josh there. So I'm like, you know, as much as I love Josh as a person, we're obviously not working together in the game. So yeah, but it is yeah, those would be the four, because, you know, and even though, you know, Michelle and Olivia aren't winning stuff in the game, I gotta say a lot of it comes down to like uh the I don't know anyone else. And what I've seen in the show is that relationships actually do matter if you know people or not. And at the end of the day, too, people are talking about Michelle. I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to play last season's game. Like everyone's like, oh, why would you work with Michelle and Olivia? I'm like,
That's
because
what that's my next question.
they
When did you
because
forgive them?
I mean, I forgave him. Right, I'm a gracious person. I believe in grace. I'm not going to hold. I don't hold grudges. That's just not me personally
Okay.
in life in general. So as far as, but in the game, like, was I ready to trust them? And coming into the game, I wasn't ready. I was ready to give them the opportunity to show me some sort of trust. And I would say what we found is that there was a little bit of that shown in the first elimination, that invitational, because Olivia really did take that on the chin. She's like, you know what? I understand this isn't going to make me work against you guys moving forward. I do want to have an opportunity to show you guys that I can be a trustworthy. Her and Michelle were both. So I'm like, okay, at the end of the day, we have these people who were absolutely like, you know, upset with themselves by the consequences of their actions. So I'm like, you know, who is somebody who you might be able to trust? Someone who has an incentive, a very personal incentive to show you that they are trustworthy. And these girls felt that you could see they felt. I knew they felt that strongly, and they were showing through conversations that aren't shown in the show. Like, I remember there's an early conversation where Michelle told me something that was actually counter to her best interest. And I was like, this is like, I'm like, she's like, but this is in your best interest. And it wasn't like a mind manipulation thing, like we've talked about after we talked about before. And it was genuinely, I was like, you know what? Like, she is trying to show me that she really wants to be for me. Olivia's trying to show me she's really trying to be for me. So I'm like, maybe this is let me give them this opportunity. And like I said, the girls are controlling the guys' game, and I do believe that both these girls have potential. So I'm like, why not, trust someone that is that has, like I said, an incentive to have my back. And so at this point in the game, that's who's left. I think Tori is very similar, like not very similar to them, but I mean very similar situation in the sense that like she's a strong competitor. She's winning challenges. She is starting to see me, as a strong competitor, and so I'm hoping that she has that incentive as well to keep me safe in the event that she has an impact in my game. So I'm just adapt like I think that's why Giant Bananas has done so well in his seasons is because he plays whatever is the game that he's playing at that time. Like he is not gonna some of his beefs in his personal conversations may extend between seasons, but he's gonna adapt to like whatever is the season that he's playing in that moment. And we've seen everybody shift from someone that they work with one season or work against other season, and it alternates. And those are the guys who adapt are the ones who survive and who are racking up the wins. So I want to play the game smart instead of emotionally.
So I have an adult question for you. Were you celibate this season? And what does that look like? Because if they put y'all in this house with like all of these, like, well, not all of them are gorgeous, but a lot of them are very attractive people. Like, how does that work? Do you even have your solo time to handle your solo stuff if you want to do that? Or do you like, we've seen a couple of times where people like snuck off and went into the bushes. But what about Kyland? What does that look like for Kyland? Was Kyland celibate?
I mean, we saw the show. We know that that's not the question that I could answer honestly with a negative answer. That being said, I mean, as far as the privacy, it's like I don't think anybody's taking care of themselves in their beds because all the beds are out in the open. But we have bathrooms, we have showers. I'm sure people are spending time, meditating and such in their showers. And so I feel like that's just the even though we had the outside kind of porta potty shower situation, we also had some indoor showers that did have that. The funny thing about that is the outdoor porta potty showers had really good hot water. The inside showers seemingly had no hot water, so a lot of people didn't necessarily use them as often. And I actually did find out that there was a little water heater mechanism that was hidden, and I learned how to turn that on whenever we wanted to go take showers. And so that was you find the little benefits you can, the little life joys. So we can take hot showers downstairs, and that was we're in this place for a long time, and we're trying to make the best of the situation.
So
And
basically, Kylan meditated a lot. That's what I heard.
I mean, you've seen Naya. Like, why would you not want to, get to know her more? And she is such a dope person, and yeah, in general. So I think that was yeah, yeah.
All right. Episode 11. Michelle is back after beating Naya. We saw, you just mentioned, we saw that y'all had like this kind of like flirtatious back and forth with each other. But we also saw that there was another guy in the equation named Josh. So by your accounts, how did that work out? Because was Josh like first and then Josh messed it up and so you became second, or were y'all both at the same time? Like what did that look like? Did she share y'all? I'm confused.
Naya is a grown single adult, and I didn't really monitor her activities in the house or hotel beforehand or whatever. I don't know what's happening. I only knew what was happening between me and her. And after one of the nights that they kind of show in the episode, they were talking about like Josh and I, which I didn't even know anything was going on between them. So by the end of the day, like I said, it's her. She's going, she's doing her thing, and it just ended up that me and her were, spending more time together that season. As far as the motivations behind that, her choices or whatnot, you guys can use whatever commentary of hers that anyone wants to. Yeah, I can't speak for someone else. We just we were spending time together, and that was all I knew. And after I found out that her and Josh also had something previous to, that also had something going on at some point. I remember I was talking to him, and he's like, "No, like we're all like." He had the same answer as me. He's like, "There's nothing. We don't have any, entitlement to anybody, and like you guys." He's like, maybe there's a little bit of something that was happening, but like you're all good. Like there's nothing, no beef between us. Like we're not, yeah, no bad
Beginning of
blood.
this beginning of this episode, we see Michelle giving you and Olivia advice. Can you describe what's going on? Because I'm confused as to why Michelle is, maybe she's not giving y'all advice. Maybe she's just speaking
Mhm.
about how y'all need to progress forward. But is there anything that we didn't see in this conversation?
Um, I'm trying to remember that, like, what we were saying in that.
She was basically saying like who you guys were aligned with, if you had anybody outside of the three of y'all that y'all were potentially could work with, and what did that look like for the three of you moving forward.
Oh yeah, I mean, it was literally. I mean, we're having these conversations all the time. That's the tricky thing about the game is that there are. Uh, it's not like we're just talking about the game, but I'm saying not all the time, but often. Like we want to reassess, we want to see our positions, we want to know, we want to cross reference. Like, hey, this is what these people are telling me. What are they telling you? Sort of deal. We did have a little bit of trust between us. As I said, we're building as we're playing, and so um, I feel like, I feel like in general, we're just checking in to find out like who can we work with and in what capacity and who's trying to have who's back. It's just they're just more game conversations. Honestly, it's like so general that it's hard to comment on any one because that's the thing. We're just trying to stay aware as things are shifting in the game, as the format shifting, and trying our best to. We want to plan. We want to be strategic together.
Got you. Johnny is seen saying it's his fault that Jordan has become a target. Do you agree with that? And did Nia talk to you about the mistrust that she may have had with Jordan? Because after
Yeah.
Johnny said what he said, they had the big blow up at the little club thing that y'all go to or whatever. The edit made it seem like, Johnny spoke to Nia about the whole Jordan situation. Then Nia started distrusting Jordan. Did Nia at any time talk to you about that? And what are your opinions on Johnny at this moment?
Um, I mean, yes, I would say Johnny's outburst did kind of draw some attention to Jordan, as far as like who it made, the girls in the house question like who are his priorities outside of Tori, and because that's just like known. And same way him and Laurel to a degree too. They're like people know, like so they're like who else? Who is his third on his list? And Jordan did kind of make people ask that question that if they hadn't been, um, and it was a legitimate question to ask. Uh, but it's tricky though because at the same time, Johnny, one thing that he's really good at, I've noticed, is especially as in a house full of people who are not good at arguing or creating compelling arguments, is that he's good at like framing a conversation. And so he was framing it in the sense of like, hey, like what are you gonna like? You should be worried about like his number 3 or 4, where you fall on his list. Which like, yeah, it does matter and it is worth finding out. But at the same time, it's like that the game itself does filter out people. Like most people don't end up in that nightmare situation that I did when I had like the only 3 girls I was supposed to, all being the only women up for elimination, and not automatically being thrown in. Most people don't end up in that situation where they only have their allies as options. Um, so the game itself, through purges, through the format and who wins, who loses a challenge, does solve a lot of those. You don't usually have to make those decisions, and I feel like that was something that Johnny knows that Tori is. The problem was that Tori was had trouble articulating it in that fight, and she does mention it, but then Johnny just does kind of talk. Let me not say she didn't have trouble articulating it. She yells it, but since it's being yelled in the middle of this fight, it isn't landing and resonating with people. And most humans, they operate emotionally, so they're also just like, wait a second, like, yeah, logically that is true, but or they don't even say that first part. They're just like, yeah, actually, like I do need to know this because it does matter all the time. And uh, I realize I don't always. I often have so many more thoughts going on in my head than sometimes I'm trying to communicate them. So I feel like I know I'm saying kind of nebulous, like disjointed thoughts, but trying to get directly to the question a little bit. Yes, what Johnny said did highlight Jordan's position and made people question where they were with him. So that did impact the game, and it was a good move, and I think that it kind of highlights Johnny didn't get his wins on accident at the end of the day. Like he is, and also as a competitor, he's good at a lot of things. I feel like, people, so he has a social, he adapts to the game, he's strategic. I'd say watching him close up, it was uh, evident. I'm like, okay, you know what? His record, like I said, isn't on accident. He's intentional about it. Uh, and also we also have a Johnny who's not just, strategically good, but he's like, spent the last year working at his boxing gym, working out and probably connecting with a lot of young people in the house. He's like in arguably the best shape of his life, he was saying. And so he's a strong competitor as a competitor, and obviously he's strong strategically. And so that it was a good move.
Last night we see the challenges a purge, and I'm excited because I'm ready to get rid of some
Oh,
dead weight. And so what was it about this particular challenge that you can recall that you were just like, what the this is crazy? Or did you not have any of those feelings? Because we would see people gassing out from the heat. We would see people struggling, digging a hole. We would see people struggling with the memory challenge. But you seemed to be like, it was easy breezy, beautiful cover girl. You were just running through there. You had the water, the sweat glistening on your body and stuff. So was the challenge that easy for you? And what were you thinking about the moment TJ said that this is a purge?
well, I mean, here's the deal. Just because you make something look easy, it doesn't mean it is. No, I'm just kidding. No, it was. I don't know. I don't know if you're being sarcastic or not. It was the opposite of easy. I am excited. I'm excited for a purge. I'm excited for a mini final. I'm excited for a purge because I'm not gonna get last. Like in most things, I feel like most things I knew I wasn't gonna get last.
All right.
Um, so I'm like, let's get people out of here for sure. Um, it, and then as far as the uh what's it called? And also to be clear, it's because we're at a sand dune. I'm like, and TJ describes it, and I'm like, okay, like this isn't something I'm gonna get last in. There are things that like I'm not gonna be great at for sure, and there's gonna be risks. But I'm like, considering who all we have left, I knew that. So then, second, the I am. I wish that they showed like could better convey how intense physically this challenge was because yeah, they show people sweating and all that things. They should put up the temperature. I looked up the temperature last night. I was like, because it was hot. I remember they said it was like almost 100 degrees, but because of the reflection of the sun off the sand and because of the humidity in the area, they said the feels like temperature was somewhere in like the 110s potentially, and that's definitely how it felt. And that you add that to the adrenaline from the competition, the varied activities that we're doing at the end when they showed the time being like just over just over an hour. I was like, if you asked me how long we were out there, I would have said hours. It felt like we were out there for hours, dying in that heat. It was so hot. And then even when I'm crossing the finish line, it's funny because I'm telling my son, I'm like, I need water. Like First off, my water pack breaks towards the end, so I lit like it. The Camelback hose isn't bringing me water, so I literally open the bag, I rip it open, the plastic open, I break the container to pour the last bit of water into my mouth as I'm trying to finish. After I finished that puzzle, first off, to get to the puzzle, they didn't even show. We had to run up sand dunes, big ass sand dunes. The sand is so hot that you could feel it burning your hands through the gloves. So it's hot. The sand is hot. And the gloves are touching the sand because it's so vertical that the sand is basically in front of you as you're climbing up. So that was what we had to do just to get to that puzzle. After we did the run and the key and the paddle boarding or whatever. So we're at the puzzle. Whatever. After you finish the puzzle, you're climbing up another sand dune. Once again, so steep. And they don't even show, you climb up a sand dune, you are dying in the sea. You've already ran just to get to this point. The puzzle pieces are 100 yards apart. So you're doing laps of 100-yard laps, lifting up these heavy boat things out in the heat, trying to memorize stuff. And you climb up that first sand dune, and it's so steep that you can't tell until you get to the top. There's another dune after that one. So I remember like climbing that, and I'm like exhausted, and I see that there's another one, and I'm like, oh my gosh, they're trying to kill us out here for reals. And so I climb up that one. And then the other thing I know in my head is I was like, I know Jordan is on my ass. And Jordan's a
That was the next
triathlete.
question I had. It made it seem like Jordan was like that he finished like in a good amount of time to catch up to you and that he was about to be on you. But like, did you see him behind you, or did you have like an empty, like you could walk if you wanted to walk to the end?
Oh, no, there was no voluntary walking, because the thing about Jordan, knowing that he's a triathlete, knowing that his endurance runs are like, if it's a short run, I could probably take him in some stuff, but his endurance, like those are things that you train up over years, and he has. So I'm like, as I'm going through, there's a different sort of tension you feel when you're running from something as opposed to running to something. And I'm running to the finish line, but I also am like, jogging the last, I don't know how long, half mile or 10 miles it felt like in the desert. I get rid of, like, my bag's broken, it's out of water, I discard it, my hat falls off because I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna jog, and like, because at any moment I could turn the corner, I could see Jordan coming down this. I didn't end up seeing him physically, but I knew that any moment he could come barreling on that corner, coming down, and I need to be ready to sprint to get to this finish line, which I could see off in the distance. Like I said, it's far. Even after we did the big sand dunes, then you turned and you saw where the finish line was, but there was little sand dunes along the way. So you're running in this hot sand, you're running through the distance, you're trying to get there. And so I didn't end up seeing him, but I am in my head like, yo, dude, like you need to keep moving, but then you also need to be ready to hightail it if you see this man coming down behind you. And that's like, I will say, that's a tension in your head where you're like, oh my gosh, like I am already dying, I'm pushing myself. But it is and I definitely got to especially after I finished that water, I got to a point where I was like, this is concerning from a health perspective. Like this is concerning as far as like
They
me
really
passing
put
out.
y'all through a lot. I know on TV it doesn't look like y'all are going through a lot, but like even the challenge before that with the containers all the way up in the air, and you had to climb up to the containers and jump across, and I wouldn't have done that. That's a lot. But I can only imagine. I can only
I'll
imagine.
come on the times too. That was pretty cool. I will say is that it's like I think I wrote it down. The Jordan finishes about 3 minutes after me, and then the next guy finishes more than 30 minutes after Jordan. So like it was hard. It was a hard thing, and it was pretty crazy, like to see. There's that comment they showed Tori saying that, and she's like, "Where are our opponents or where are our competitors or whatever?" Like because, and also like I said, time just felt like it was passing slower.
Yeah.
It was just so intense and so difficult.
I was
But
yelling at my screens. I was like screaming Kylan. I was screaming Tori. I was even yelling at the screens for Theo because he had the 2-minute penalty, but still made it
yeah,
through. past people. It was just it was intense. I was yelling for Aviv because she had her injury, but she was still making it work. Those kinds of moments are really, really awesome. Laurel quits, and I am like, are you freaking kidding me? Do you at any point feel like or have felt like you wanted to quit any of the challenges that you've done so far?
I mean, I haven't. But that, yeah, like never. It wouldn't cross. Like I was. It was very much. There's this like old Will Smith clip where he says like, if you and me get on a treadmill together, only two things are gonna happen. Like you're gonna get off first, or I'm gonna die. Like that's what I'm there to do. And even when I was in that chamber with Nehemiah and Darrell, everyone's like, "You're being dramatic." I'm like, I'm not saying that like I'm going to kill myself. I'm saying that I'm going to push as far as I possibly can, and that is to the limit. Like I said, when I'm out there in the sand and we're hustling on something that takes incredible strong athletes, that are there 90 minutes to finish, and we're trying to finish in 60 minutes. Um, uh, that only comes from pushing, and why would I do anything less than my best? But that is, yeah, that was just where I was at.
I have to ask about this because I'm really, really curious if this is another edited situation. Because the Kyland that I've seen on Big Brother has a mouth on him. The Kyland that I've seen in the challenges so far up until now has had a mouth on him. So I'm very shocked because we have, which appears to me and probably some other fans that watch the show, we see an entitled Johnny Bananas at the deliberation
Hold on,
table, clipping
you
his
just muted.
toenails. You hear me?
Hello?
You there?
Yes, sorry, I pressed the button. I guess. My
No, you
apologies.
good. We see an entitled Johnny Bananas at the deliberation table, clipping his toenails, and then it seems like he flicks them y'all's way. Now, did a toenail hit you? Is what I'm wondering.
No. So I mean, a toenail didn't hit me. Uh, it was funny, honestly, because it felt like even when he came at and said like, "Oh, Colin's wardrobe sucks" or whatever,
I was going
while
to
he's
ask you
wearing
about
a
that
random
because
pink, while he's
that
wearing a
was the
random
whole
pink
point.
tank top. Here's the
We don't
deal
see
for
you
me.
saying anything. Now, this is what is going through your mind because you're mute. So like,
Well, it's not that I'm mute. It's more like for me, I don't see a need to, uh,
respond.
you know, yeah, exactly. I'm just kind of like, this is someone who's floundering. Exactly what Tori said. This is someone who's used to having things, a lot of people, a lot of sway in the house that he's in, and he's used to being in a season where if there's new people, then he just gets to steamroll through a lot of them, and he's complaining. He's like, I go into eliminations every season. I'm always targeted, and it's like, Johnny, you have the most wins of any challenger. So either you're the best and you're a threat, and no one should want you to stick around in the game, or you're not. Like you can't have it both ways. You can't be I am the challenge. I'm good at all these things, and but nobody should target me. You can't have both. Like
Yeah.
so, it's for me the whining, the sob stories are I'm not really something I'm worried about, and it's not. Yeah, they are kind of falling deaf ears. If anything, I'd say the moment I was having is like, uh, uh, hey, I don't want to kick someone out of the down. He's going into elimination. We know this. And he's going against Theo, someone who is pretty good at eliminations. Depending, yeah, you don't. He's big, he's strong, he's fast, and he's smart. Very smart. So I'm like, why kick somebody while they're down, sort of deal. He's
Right.
lashing out because he's scared. And I'm just like, this is yeah. I just didn't feel a need. Like it didn't feel a need to get down in the dirt with it in that scenario. I'm just like the actions will speak for themselves. I mean, not me, but Tori's putting him in elimination. He lost, this mini final. I'm sure that he's feeling, all these types of ways. And it's like, and Cara called it out, very well in the earlier episode where she was like, it's not Johnny and his angels. It's really Rachel, the CEO. And Johnny happens to be in this group that she has of these women. And I feel like, it just was, the sob story and just, I was like, well, see, because there was more to his rant too in there. Because I remember he was like, he's like, you're lucky that this isn't 5 years ago or a couple years ago, whenever, when I was really hungry and I was really trying to come and be the best the same way you're trying to be or whatever. Like, so in them, I was like,
This was to
I don't
you
know.
or to Tori?
Yeah, this is me in the chamber. Yeah, he yelled.
Oh,
Yeah, he
wow.
said that to me. He's like, and I was like, honestly, in my head, I was, that was the thing I wanted to respond to, because when he said that, like, oh, your clothes suck or whatever, I'm like, this is, he's lashing out. He's concerned. But when he said like, yo, yeah, you're lucky, I was like, man, like, I was like, no, like, maybe you're lucky that I wasn't here, because then you wouldn't have 7 rings that way. Like, I don't know. We won't know. But at the end of the day, it's like, this is, it just is, you have the titles, so people are going to come after you. And I'm not sure. And that's the other thing. The sob stories, I feel like, are very calculated. I think that what I noticed is, I don't think he really cares. Like, not like he doesn't care about people, not like he doesn't care about the game, but I think that, unlike a lot of people in the challenge, which is funny to me because so many people are like, these people talk so much shit and they're so sensitive. Like, it blows my mind how sensitive these people are. And I'd say Johnny is one of the few people that I would put very high up. That he'll like pretend like he's sensitive, but he actually doesn't care. Like, and that's, I think it does kind of, I'd say people are lucky that I believe in kindness and being nice so strongly that, like, I don't want to put out hate in the world, because I am not going to call you names. I'm going to say something that is accurate in the literal sense. I'm going to say something that's true. I'm going to say something that will hurt your feelings, and you probably can't hurt my feelings, because I don't feel the same way that a lot of normal people do. And so I don't do that. I think that, we'll see how long that lasts, because that's what I'm noticing is like I said, it just blows my mind how and people talk about something that's personal or game or whatever, and they try and draw these arbitrary lines, and I'm like, it's all personal, it's all game. I was like, what's personal to me is if you do something that takes money out of my pocket, that prevents me from supporting my family, that's personal to me. You call me some sort of name, you say that, you don't like my mother or whatever, like, that's going to roll off me, because it doesn't matter. Like, to me, I'm just like, but other people are like, oh my gosh, like, yeah, I know that I am taking money out of your pocket, in the pocket of your children, your family, your whatever, but like, that's just the game. It's not personal or whatever. It's like, no, that's probably the most personal thing that could possibly happen. So, but people want to get all up in arms or whatever. And like I said, I'm just like, I'm definitely curious, because we have so many of these people that talk shit and are just so sensitive. And one day I probably, we'll see what happens if I do start just calling people out and like not worrying about hurting people's feelings. But like I said, it feels like asymmetrical warfare to me, because I'm like, I can hurt their feelings and they can't hurt mine. It's not fair, so I probably shouldn't, especially because it's going to get people up in arms. But we'll see. We'll see. I don't know. We'll see how long that lasts for me, because people tick.
Would you have wanted to go into this elimination? I look in this elimination and I'm like, what the hell is this? What is this? I don't understand it. It looks new. I don't recall ever seeing this before. You have this tall ass Adonis looking man in Theo, and then you have this wide back looking man and Johnny. And to be honest, I actually enjoyed watching this elimination. I thought it was really, really cool, because it was kind of like nail biting, the fact that there was a gamble component and then how are they going to get through this component? And so I'm also liking that this season, a lot of these eliminations are a thing where anyone could win them, for the most part. And so watching this, I'm cheering on Theo, of course. But my first question is, would you have wanted to go in this elimination? And then my second question is, what do you think about this elimination?
So I think eliminations are the coolest part of the challenge. Most eliminations that I see, I would love to do. This is probably the only one elimination that I saw, and I was like, I wouldn't want to do this. I wouldn't want to be a part of this at all. Like, legitimately, like, I think the only elimination that I saw where I was like, in both of my seasons, where I was like, I would not want to be a part of this because the size difference was so drastic. And like I said, I'm bigger than a decent amount of people. And it just was, I was like, there's no, like, yeah, I mean, it was exciting to watch, but once again, it was one of those things. It's like it's a foregone conclusion at the end of the day. Like, and Theo blew us all away with how far he got in the game. It was mad impressive for him to get so far, but it was like this can only go on for so long. Like the size difference is too great, and so yeah, it was interesting. I too, I'm cheering for Theo. The other thing I was just gonna call out because I don't know if you mentioned it, but a lot of people are complaining about Michelle getting into it with Josh and, on the cheering thing. And like, I gotta defend her a little bit because we are playing a game. And something that I commented earlier to Josh in another episode was how being friends and being allies are not the same thing. You can be friends with everybody. Nobody's saying that you can't be friends with everybody. Like, maybe they use that verbiage or whatever, but at the end of the day, what people are saying is they're saying like, hey, I appreciate you being my friend, but are you my ally? And cheering for the person who is against your ally is just showing, hey, sure, like I like you as a person, I'm your friend, but like I'm cheering for my friends, and that's okay. You can do that. But also, I can be upset if you are cheering for my opponent. That's just the reality of the game. You are cheering for someone who's against me in the game. And I think that was very similar. I'm going to note because it reminded me of I think that was a similar thing with the Casey and Rachel thing, was that Casey made it clear to me when we first got in the house. It's like, yo, if you do a move against Josh, I'm not going to want to work with you. Like, obviously, I think her feelings changed as the season went on, but early on, that was the impression that she gave me. And so I was like, I understand that. And that's why, like, I understood Tori's situation because everyone's like, Johnny keeps, oh, Tori, you're playing Devin's game or whatever. It's like, for me, I'm like, no, like, I think there's a very compelling argument that can be made that you position yourself as a strong ally is someone who people know that if you come after me, or my ally, I'm coming after you, period. And so it is, to me, I'm like, yo, I know, I'm like, okay, if this person is, if this person rides with me, they ride with me all the way. And I think that's a good thing to have in an ally, someone that it's like, yo, and I think it makes you more attractive as an ally. Because I'm like, okay, wait a second. If I work with Tori or whatever, I'm working with Tori, I'm working with Michelle or whoever, and someone comes after me, that person like becomes their ally. And I think that was the whole situation with Rachel and Josh, is that nobody was saying, Josh, you have to tell Rachel that you can't be friends. But for Casey's game, as someone who was willing to do that, who was willing to tell someone, hey, if you work against my number one, we can't work together. I think that she just wanted that reciprocated. And I think Michelle, in the very previous elimination, showed with her actions. She's like, Josh, I'm working with you. And just to show you that it's not just talk, I'm going to select Jordan and Nehemiah as targets instead of you. She showed him with an action.
I could not.
She showed him with an action that she's working with him, and this was her opportunity, his opportunity, and he didn't. Tell me why.
That was bullshit. I was like, what in the world are you doing here? All these people, well, not a lot of people to pick from, but you picked Nehemiah over Josh? What? And all season long, Josh has proven that he has no real allegiance with anyone because he's quote unquote friends with everyone. And he's not able to solidify and make a stand on anything. So I was very confused with Michelle's choices, but then we
And that's
see,
why she was so upset, because
yeah,
she's like, hey, I saved you. I didn't make you a target, and you didn't repay the favor. Like, you were not rocking for me the way I showed you I'm rocking for you. And
yeah,
that's why she was upset. And I was like, I get it.
makes sense. We see a tweet, and I'm not asking you to speak for him,
Yeah.
but we see a tweet where Theo proclaims, and I'm paraphrasing, that because they quote unquote knew who was going to be in an elimination, that he felt that he was set up with this particular course that he ended up with because he was going against Johnny, and Johnny's like a fave. Do you feel like there's any validity to that, or do you think these eliminations are really like they knew episode 11 was going to be this elimination, and then episode 12 was going to be this elimination?
I would say, I think very strongly, as someone who used to help work at an experiential agency where we would have to set up events for stuff, especially like where safety isn't can be involved as a factor for, like, these things are planned out beforehand. They know what eliminations are doing. I remember last season 39, and that's like everyone wants to say, everyone wants to believe this, the narrative that matches their emotional feelings. But 39, we had they had to switch an elimination due to weather, and they had to push it a day. Like, and it was to set up a pole wrestle. To be clear, like, to set up a pole wrestle, they had to push it a day because they had to deconstruct these eliminations beforehand and set up the arena, set up the camera, everything different. So, like, I don't think, yes, there is a flexibility to the eliminations, like where someone could say, like, okay, they're going to use this elimination for this scenario. But there's been so many times, what else I remember is, what is it? When Jordan flipped the kill cards in the iconic, like, moment with him and Johnny when he threw himself into elimination. It's like they knew that Jordan was gonna come and do this. Like, everybody in the house has been talking about it, and it would have been iconic to give them an elimination where there was equal chances. They had the elimination where Jordan didn't really stand as an even chance because he needed both hands. Like, this, like, at the end of the day, there's some eliminations where, as amazing as it is, it could be a hindrance to him. And that was one of the ones where it was. He still does pretty good, as he does in most things. But, like, the fact that they didn't change that elimination to something where at least it was even footing, I think is one of the scenarios. And like I said, in 39, to push an elimination, or to switch an elimination due to weather, they had to push a day. And I think that, as much as we want to believe and want to blame other things, I don't think that's the case. And like I said, it was just amazing, though. Sometimes it's the luck of the draw. Like, somebody commented how, Theo had the hall brawl with Paulie and his size helped him. Then he has this one and his size hurts him. And that's just how the dice play out sometimes.
Got you. So we have a question from Datboy K4861. And he watches all of my reviews, so shout out to him. His question is, do you feel obligated to be a part of a Big Brother alliance when you're on the challenge?
I would say no. For me, I think that, that's kind of how I came into USA One, was just like, I was like, I'm going to play Kylan's game. Like, I've played for an alliance, and I am glad that I did in my Big Brother season. But outside, here's the thing, I do have a little bit of pride for Big Brother and the fact that, like, we haven't, yet had a male champion for Big Brother crowned. We'll see what happens. But I think that my priority is, to adapt to the game and to adapt to the people I'm playing with. So, I have a little bit of pride and I want to see Big Brother do well, but I want to see Kyland do well, more than that. And so if working with Big Brother works out for me, great. I talked to Casey and Josh. I'm like, yo, like, it is a connection, and you're looking for, especially me coming into the house with arguably the least connections of anybody else, maybe me and Aviv. You're looking for whatever you can to relate to people, and Big Brother was one of those things. But I knew coming in, especially people that played with the Big Brother people on USA season 2, they're like, the Big Brother, the people who came from Big Brother who have been playing MTV, they are challengers first, Big Brother second. Just be aware of that, and that rang true in my experience playing with them. So yeah, it's something, that's how I deal with it.
All right. Question from user dash FV5. Being on the spectrum, is there any times where you felt like you had miscommunication or misread social cues that you've had to learn from? And then define being on the spectrum, because that's different for everybody.
Yeah, so uh I'm on the autism spectrum, and people often sometimes misunderstand that as, oh, because it's the spectrum, everybody's a little bit on the spectrum. No, everyone's not on the spectrum. It means that there is a actual difference neurologically to how my brain and body operate, and interpret cues, interpret things, interpret different situations. I learn interact like humans tend to learn interaction through each, like interpersonal communication through osmosis, like just by being around it, and engaging with it. For me, and as with a lot of people on the spectrum, most of my interpersonal communication things have been learned intentionally and thoughtfully. And a lot of people on the spectrum have at various points in their life, and me to this day, I take notes on like interactions on people a lot of times, because I'm like, oh, okay, wait, this makes people feel this way. Because like I said, it's really hard to hurt my feelings because I don't operate the same way. But similarly, it can be easy for me to hurt somebody else's feelings, because I'm like, this wouldn't hurt my feelings, so why would it hurt their feelings? I'm like, oh yeah, because they're sensitive, like because people feel stuff. So it happens pretty consistently, and the troubling part about it is that a lot of emotions, many emotions, are not logic based, like by their very nature. And I, as many people on the spectrum operate very logic based, very literal based. So, and I do, but I do. This is a game where social dynamics are important. This environment. So, uh, sometimes I'm doing things or I'm saying things. It's not because they're inauthentic in terms of like it's not inauthentic as far as my intention of how I want someone to feel, but it's not natural to me. So the troubling part of that, the frustrating part of that, is that it's very difficult for people to understand, um, who are not neurodivergent in this way. So I will take in information from somebody. I'll be like, okay, wait, in this situation, to let people feel understood or related to, or that you care about their feelings, you're supposed to do this. That's not natural to me, but I do want to make sure this person knows that I feel positive towards them, not in a fake way, because in a genuine way. So let me operate that way. So then you have that interaction, and then people are like, this feels off. Like, it doesn't feel normal. Not all the time, but sometimes they're like, this feels off. And especially in this environment where everyone's skeptical of each other because we are opponents, like I said. So all of a sudden they're like, Kylan's inauthentic or whatever. And I'm like, so it's a terrible, frustrating situation, because it's like, well, no, I'm doing something that is not natural to me. So yeah, I guess it's not natural to how I would operate, but I'm doing it because this is how y'all operate. This is how people operate. And I do actually care about conveying to you that intention, that thought, that and this is my understanding of how people do this. So it can be, and for the most part, I think in my life I've gotten really good at operating, the way that neurodivergent, at least giving the appearance of operating the way that a lot of people do. So for the most part, I don't think people get that intention from me or get that feeling from me. But it is frustrating because at times it's like, there, especially the better you are at masking. And I think that I'm someone that's gotten, because my diagnosis didn't come till I was 30 years old. I just got really good at masking. I got really good at uh, putting forward traits that are unnatural to me, to make people feel like comfortable, to feel that like I am operating the same way as them. And I got so good at it that people then hold me to that standard of like, oh, like Kylan should be operating the same way socially as everyone else. So then when I don't, they are disappointed by it because they have that standard. And so it does come into play in ways that are very frustrating, and it is hard to communicate, because it is like someone will look and they'll just be like, hey, like I in a when they're feeling sensitive to it, they're like, oh, okay, like I understand, yeah, like you operate different, like it's the double speak of someone will say, oh, okay, cool. Like Kylan operates differently. Got it. I understand that. I'm okay with that. Then I do something that's different. And they're like, why'd you do that? Like, I
Right.
was like, you know why I did it. Like, and it, we saw it in the arena. Like, sometimes I don't like, or well, they show a clip of it. There's a time, Johnny's like asking, I mentioned, hey, here's the poll count or whatever. He's like, yeah, we're counting too or whatever. And so I was up there. I was like, okay, there's a 3 poll different or a 4 poll different. And Johnny actually kept asking, he's like, what's the count now? What's the count now? And then I was answering, and somebody said, and it took a couple of times. Somebody's like, he's messing with you. And I was like, oh, no, I was just answering his question because that made sense. Like, he's asking me a question about math on the things, and I'm just answering it. And they're like, nah. And I'm like, oh, shoot. Like, okay, got it.
Right.
And
Right.
like, I have a lot of those. So it does pop up in a lot of ways that are so hard to communicate. And sadly, this was me trying to be concise about it, but I can get into it much deeper in another conversation. But it does come into play.
We do have to have another conversation because the
Yeah.
season is not over yet, and
Yes.
I know you are a busy guy, and I do have another appointment. But I do want to get this last person's question out there. He asked 4, but you answered a few of them already. So I'll ask. Since you, and this is from 0104 Brit. Since you haven't competed with most of this cast, who surprised you or disappointed you?
Honestly, I don't know if anybody disappointed me. Because like I said, I mean, I think seeing how emotional the people are, that was just across the board for most of them. I would say surprised me is like Tori, only as a like I feel like I didn't really know Tori. I met her like once maybe at a night out with some people, so like we barely had talked or anything. Oh no, and then I met her, hung out with her a little bit at the reunion for 39, but briefly. And but I knew she won she had just won Ride or Dies, but like seeing her perform, especially with the level of the competition among the women this season, it was incredible. It just seems like I'm like, what isn't she good at? Because she seems to consistently be good at everything, and it was very impressive to see. And I think, and honestly, I'll actually add that for so many of the women. I think Rachel, I'd never seen Rachel. Obviously, she'd been gone for so long. I did a workout with her, so I knew she was tough, whatever. But then seeing her being scrappy, seeing Jenny, like, I wasn't sure about her endurance after her and Anissa had that super close elimination. I was like, I don't know. But then I was like, these show muscles. But then I started seeing her perform, and I was like, okay, like Jenny actually is pushing through a lot of stuff. I was like the other, so many, but yeah, there was just so much greatness, like everyone has noticed, especially among the women, as competitors. I think it's like Derek is surprising people. Derek didn't surprise me at all. I saw Derek, right? I was like, Derek Chavez. I was like, he's a like Division 1 runner or something like that. Like him, he's very fast. Everyone knows he's smart. His ability to navigate socially has, like, I think is the most impressive, because he is someone who's cool with everyone, but nobody has an issue with it. And I think that you have people like Josh is cool with so many people, but people are having issues. Johnny or Jordan or whoever, and it's just like, and I know.
Josh is like his own. He's on an island by himself all the time. Every season he comes on, he's on an island by himself. So look, I have to go. We have to talk again. I don't know how many episodes are left of this season. I do know who makes it to the final, and so I'm not going to say anything, of course, but I do want. We have to keep talking. Last time we were supposed to do this season 39. And you got busy. You're some superstar. You were in Alaska one week, then Antarctica the next week, then Africa, then Europe, then in outer space on Mars. Like, you're all over the place. So whenever you're able to make time, I think it would be cool if we did at least maybe one more or two more before the end of the season.
Oh yeah, no, we will. I appreciate you. I appreciate the flexibility, the timing. I know you're busy as well, and I yeah, you're like I said, your reviews are always very fun to watch, and I appreciate the less want Corey to win over me. I get it. He has
Hey,
more views. He has more
listen.
views.
Both of y'all are considered baby daddy, but Corey has been here first, and then I discovered you afterward. So and he's like the new, or not the new, but he's like a Leroy, someone that has been trying, and for whatever reason he keeps coming up short. So hey, I want all my buddies to win. But yeah, you baby daddy, so
I appreciate it. I
appreciate
it.
you.
No, thank you.